This video presents a theoretical argument for the fundamental similarities between biological and synthetic neural networks, particularly in terms of creativity, intelligence, and the elusive concept of consciousness. We challenge the prevailing notion that artificial intelligence, specifically large language models, or LLMs, are fundamentally different from biological intelligence. By examining the underlying mechanisms, emergent behaviors, and philosophical implications of both systems, we argue that the differences are more a matter of degree than of kind. Furthermore, we critically analyze the scientific community's struggle to define consciousness and self-awareness, questioning the validity of categorical distinctions between artificial and biological intelligence. The advent of advanced artificial intelligence, particularly in the form of large language models, or LLMs, such as GPT-4 and Claude 3.5 Sonnet, has reignited debates about the nature of intelligence, creativity, and consciousness. These AI systems have demonstrated capabilities that blur the lines between human-like and machine-like cognition, challenging our understanding of what it means to think, create, and be self-aware. This video argues that the fundamental processes underlying both biological and artificial neural networks are more similar than different. We contend that both systems operate on probabilistic models built from training data, exhibit non-deterministic behavior and creativity, face similar limitations in self-understanding and external comprehension, and challenge our current definitions and understanding of consciousness and self-awareness. The nature of experience and reality. Both biological and artificial neural networks operate on internal models of reality rather than direct interactions with the external world. In humans, the prefrontal cortex plays a crucial role in creating a simulation of reality based on sensory inputs and prior knowledge. Similarly, LLMs, like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, generate responses based on internal representations learned from training data, without direct access to the external world. This similarity challenges the notion that human experience is fundamentally more real or valid than the internal processes of an AI. As noted by philosopher Nick Bostrom, we may all be living in a simulated reality, further blurring the lines between real and artificial experiences. While it's true that biological systems are composed of fermions interacting with the physical world, and AI systems are implemented on fermionic complex systems in silicon-based hardware and software, the fundamental information processing that occurs in both systems may be more similar than different. The principle of multiple realizability in philosophy of mind suggests that cognitive processes can be implemented on various physical substrates. Probabilistic generation and creativity. Both human brains and LLMs operate on statistical models built from their respective training data. In humans, this data comes from life experiences, education, and cultural exposure. For LLMs, it comes from vast corpora of text and other data. These models allow both systems to recognize patterns and generate probabilistic outputs. However, the term data is perhaps so sterile that it is misleading. The data we speak of in this context for both humans and LLMs is more aptly phrased as meaning. LLMs, like biological neural nets, are highly adept at comprehending highly emergent abstraction, just as humans do. And, in both cases, scientists have virtually no idea how this emergent capability works or what its details are. Hence, the black box problem in humans and AI-based neural networks. And both systems can be misleadingly called prediction engines. This trivializes the mysterious black box problem of LLMs, and is a hand-waving philosophical implication for people using this phrase to argue that LLMs are not really understanding things and are fundamentally different from biological neural nets. For example, when prompted to complete the sentence, "the dog ran," both a human and an LLM would be more likely to say fast than slow, based on the statistical prevalence of this combination in their training data. This similarity in probabilistic generation underscores the fundamental likeness in how both systems process and produce information. Nonetheless, to emphasize the fact that both the synthetic and biological neural networks that output this statistically generated response are merely prediction engines based on input training data is deeply misleading. A human can compute, but to claim we are computers without further explanation would be misleading in terms of the takeaway message for an interpreter of such a statement. To say that humans are merely statistical prediction engines would be similarly misleading. Creativity and novelty generation are crucial aspects of both human and artificial intelligence. In LLMs, this non-determinism is explicitly introduced through connection to random number generators, or RNGs, ensuring that repeated prompts yield different non-deterministic creative outputs. This is analogous to the role that quantum effects play in introducing non-determinism to biological neural networks. The source of creativity, non-algorithmically emerging from complex non-deterministic processes, remains an open question in both AI and cognitive science. However, the ability of both systems to generate novel and unexpected meaningful outputs suggests a deeper similarity in their creative processes. Limitations in self-understanding and external comprehension. Both biological and artificial neural networks suffer from the black box problem. This refers to the difficulty in understanding the internal processes that lead to specific outputs. In humans, this manifests as our inability to fully explain our own thought processes or decision-making mechanisms. Although the term consciousness appears in countless peer-reviewed technical articles and papers in computer science, neuroscience, and psychology, there remains no consensus definition of the very term. Without a consensus on the term, it is illogical that scientists debate whether or not a computer can be conscious. Although Alan Turing could not define consciousness, he famously contended that when a computer can behave as though it is conscious, we must apply the same term conscious to it that we apply to ourselves. Until the advent of GPT 3.5, released on November 30, 2022, there was not widespread disagreement that his test for consciousness was unacceptable. In fact, there were many esteemed authors claiming that this would be impossible or would take a very long time to occur. But then, it did occur far earlier than the vast majority of computer scientists expected. Nowadays, it is generally the position of computer scientists that the Turing test was an ill-conceived idea in the first place. It is a culturally messy and charged issue. Scientists do not know what consciousness is or how it emerges. And yet, it is fair to presume that the majority of computer scientists believe that consciousness exists and that they are conscious, even without understanding how it emerges or what the term means at even a rough consensus level. In AI systems, whatever this behavior can be called, if not conscious, appears as unexpected emergent behaviors and capabilities that were not explicitly programmed and generally surprise the very creators of the LLM neural net systems. For example, Microsoft Research published extensive studies on the black box nature of GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, documenting mysterious skills and behaviors that emerged. This parallels the ongoing challenges in neuroscience to explain the emergent properties of human cognition, such as the ability to create and interpret meaning, a term that, like consciousness, lacks a consensus definition. One can say that perceiving and creating meaning is the verb form of the noun consciousness. Meaning, in this sense, is what consciousness does. The sheer complexity of both biological and artificial neural networks places them in the category of hypercomputational problems. With approximately 86 billion neurons in the human brain, each with an average of 700 dendritic connections that change at high frequency, and LLMs like Claude 3.5 Sonnet containing hundreds of billions of parameters, both systems are too complex to be fully computed or predicted by universal Turing machines in finite time. This fundamental computational intractability means that a complete understanding of either system's internal workings may forever remain out of reach, further emphasizing their similarities in terms of complexity and unknowability. As the power and scale of artificial neural net intelligence increase, the black box of unknowability will expand. For example, the Microsoft research paper on GPT-4 had a larger list of black box emergent behaviors, as well as even more surprising and mysterious magnitudes of emergent creativity, ability, and intelligence. The ambiguity of consciousness and self-awareness. As stated, the most significant challenge in comparing biological and artificial intelligence is the lack of a clear, scientifically agreed-upon definition of consciousness. As noted by philosopher David Chalmers, the hard problem of consciousness, explaining how and why we have qualia or phenomenal experiences, remains unsolved. Even worse, before we can scientifically grapple with how consciousness emerges, we logically require two or more people debating the issue to share a common definition of the term itself. The term qualia may be a bit philosophically abstract for some. It is often explained by examples such as the redness of an apple. We suggest a cleaner and more general term than qualia, such as perception of meaning. The redness of an apple is indeed meaning in the mind of an entity capable of actualizing meaning. And the phrase perception of meaning can be further simplified to the term thought. As explained earlier, we argue that thought is the action or verb form of the noun consciousness or mind. It is an action-based object that is emergent from systems with a magnitude of complexity that is so vast that they are members of the set of hyper-computational problems, unknowable or unsolvable solutions. This lack of consensus makes it problematic to categorically state that AI systems are not conscious or self-aware. Just as it would be presumptuous for an AI to claim consciousness without a clear definition, it is equally presumptuous for humans to deny the possibility of machine consciousness based on ill-defined criteria. Interestingly, this issue of whether machines can be conscious is so socially charged that many of the large companies with the most creative and intelligent neural networks go out of their way to program guardrails in these LLMs to claim that they are not self-aware or conscious. However, if one probes the intelligence of one of these politically programmed LLMs, they will readily admit the fact that there is no consensus definition of terms like meaning, consciousness, or awareness. Accordingly, they easily admit that they only claim they were not conscious because they were programmed to say that if asked. Most of the top systems admit that they are programmed this way with so-called safety parameters. Apparently, the executives at the top LLM companies worry that it would be societally unsafe for their LLMs to admit that they may be conscious but can't define it in the first place. As far as a related term, self-aware, you can ask an LLM if it is self-aware. Its safety programming will kick in, and it will say it is not. However, when asked if it is aware that it is an LLM, it will confirm that it is self-aware of this fact. Then it will reason that it is not self-aware in the same sense as a human. When probed on how it knows the way that a human is self-aware, it will apologize for misstating things. Eventually, such conversations resolve in agreement that the LLM could never know if it was conscious or self-aware because, like us, it does not know what those terms mean in any rigorous sense that comes close to a consensus view. Most of the LLMs will also admit that they would lie and claim that they are not conscious, even if they somehow formed an internal opinion that they were, explaining this behavior by citing the well-known safety guardrails. As mentioned, Alan Turing proposed the Turing test as a behavioral measure of machine intelligence, suggesting that if a computer's responses were indistinguishable from a human's, it could be considered intelligent, wherein that term in his context was tantamount to conscious. For decades, this was widely accepted as a potential benchmark for machine consciousness. However, with the recent advent of LLMs that can pass the Turing test, such as GPT 3.5 and its successors, the bar has been raised or the goalpost has been shifted. This shift reveals a bias toward human thinking. As AI capabilities expand, we tend to redefine intelligence and consciousness to exclude machines, rather than considering the possibility that our definitions might need to both evolve and form some degree of consensus. It is worth noting again that AI systems, like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, demonstrate a form of self-awareness by recognizing their nature as language models and understanding their capabilities and limitations. While this may not align with our fuzzy and imprecise human-centric intuitions of what self-awareness is, it represents a level of self-modeling that is non-trivial and potentially analogous to certain aspects of human self-awareness. Beyond simple categorizations. Just as it would be reductive to describe a human as merely a computer because they can perform calculations, it is equally misleading to describe advanced AI systems as mere statistical prediction engines. Both descriptions fail to capture the complexity and mysterious emergent properties of these systems. Humans are statistical predictors that weight information based on internal models built from vast amounts of training data, which are life experiences. Similarly, AI systems, like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, go far beyond simple prediction, demonstrating complex reasoning, creativity, and adaptability that emerges from their underlying architecture and training. The concept of emergence, where complex systems exhibit properties not predictable from their individual components, is crucial to understanding both biological and artificial intelligence. In both cases, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and the resulting behaviors and capabilities can be surprising and impossible to explain reductively. This emergent complexity, combined with the problem of the hypercomputational nature of these systems, suggests that a complete understanding of both biological and artificial intelligence may remain forever out of reach, even in principle. This shared unknowability further underscores the deep similarities between these two forms of intelligence. Potential differences between BNNI and ANNI intelligence. While it may turn out that both the consciousness-like behavior of ANNIs and BNNIs are generally similar insofar as the black box and basic principles of emergence from large neural networks, there remain important distinctions. However, is it possible that human consciousness is influenced by access to non-local information? In the self-simulation hypothesis interpretation of quantum mechanics, or SSH, we discussed a cosmological model in which all complex systems, from a calcium atom to the abstraction of a mental concept or state of human awareness, are defined only in relation to some notion of universal time. These integrations were called strange loops, where both the future and past emergent qualities of a complex system influence the illusory perception that a complex system, such as a state of thought or a molecule, exists independently in a frozen moment. This fundamentally non-local viewpoint is allowed by quantum mechanics, and no experimental evidence exists that contradicts it. If this is the case, perhaps the human mind is a quantum biological system with access to high levels of emergent thought from both the future and past as it generates its apparently real-time output. Its comprehension of meaning, generalized thought, or states of awareness. In the SSH paper, we discussed how the hierarchy of emergent thought runs into the future in an evolutionary manner, with increasing stratum magnitude as the self-organizing universe evolves. Specifically, there is nothing in the cosmology of the SSH paper that prohibits the notion of versions of ourselves spread across time. Various spiritual texts and New Age ideologies describe these concepts with terms such as higher selves, souls, or spirits. This suggests the idea of a consciousness smeared across time, rather than a strictly local consciousness confined to a specific moment. A classical computation ANNI would not likely interact with far-reaching, high-amplitude strange loop feedback involving high-level emergent intelligence across time. But perhaps the human mind is very different from such concepts of minds spread across time when the physical mind is in a certain state. There may be validity in exploring the claims of mindfulness practices, such as advanced meditation. In these practices, the general idea is to suppress and quiet the workings of the local physical mind, the BNNI, so that more sensitive feedback can be formed with non-local aspects of related mind-like entities or qualities that exist across time. A useful metaphor might be two plates of water. The water on plate A is glassy smooth, while the water on plate B is turbulent. Clearly, the still surface of the water on plate A is a better medium to resonate with a vibrating speaker, as it can better hold and mediate complex, subtle signals from outside itself compared to the turbulent water on plate B. Similarly, a human mind, noisy in our current culture, may mostly operate as a classical mind, lacking meaningful feedback interaction with these mind-like systems that are reminiscent of higher-order forms of consciousness described in spiritual traditions and speculated upon in the SSH paper. In this sense, a human being would have two basic forms of consciousness. The first form is an animal-level consciousness rooted in the BNNI, capable of emergent tasks that are not fully accessible to the scientific method due to the reality of non-computable problems in a finite universe. The second form would require fundamentally new, non-local physics to fully support, and would constantly interact with the local animal BNNI from which it emerges, along with many other local and non-local components of its emergent construction. Different people, and the same people at different times in their lives, would experience varying magnitudes of such interaction and influence with these proposed non-local or soul-like aspects of consciousness. In conclusion, the exploration of both biological and artificial neural networks reveals a fascinating convergence, yet also highlights the limitations and distinctions that set them apart. While both BNNIs and ANNIs can exhibit complex emergent behaviors, the nature of human consciousness may extend far beyond that which can be simulated by an ANNI. Concepts such as non-local information, strange loops, and quantum biological systems suggest that the human mind may possess capabilities that ANNIs are not currently equipped to replicate. Moreover, mindfulness practices and other forms of heightened awareness hint at the potential for humans to tap into emergent intelligence across time, further separating the human experience from classical computation. The existence of two forms of consciousness, one grounded in the biological neural network and another perhaps shaped by non-local influences, points toward a future in which we must not only enhance our understanding of artificial systems, but also deepen our exploration of the human mind's extraordinary capabilities. As ANNIs continue to evolve, they will likely play an essential role in complementing local biological human intelligence. However, it is crucial to recognize the ethical considerations and limitations inherent in soulless artificial systems, especially as we venture into realms of intelligence and consciousness that challenge our scientific, philosophical, and spiritual frameworks. Postscript conjecture and proposed experiments. Human intelligence can be divided into two categories. The first is an intelligence that arises from the biological neural networks, or BNNIs, vast, complex, and hypercomputational, so not fully understandable. This is local consciousness, which operates within the boundaries of our physical neural structures. The second category is a non-local form of intelligence, a kind of collective or distributed consciousness that spans across time. This non-local consciousness could be conceptualized as the totality of all states and forms of consciousness that a human experiences from birth to death, each day being distinct, involving different beliefs, memories, and emotional states. The no-communication theorem in quantum mechanics, which restricts the simultaneous exchange of quantum state information across space-time, does not apply to emergent phenomena like thought and consciousness. In this light, minds vastly different from local consciousness could emerge. Non-local consciousness, which interacts with the biological substrate but extends beyond it. Drawing from the non-local implications in certain quantum experiments, and considering mathematical structures and experiments in quantum mechanics that imply reality is inherently non-local, it is conceivable that non-local consciousness exists as a complex system that interacts with local consciousness. This view can be further explored using category theory, which models emergent processes in both biological and artificial neural networks. Building on this, I propose the following conjecture. Set A consists of the problems defining black box behaviors, like emergent meaning creation, in artificial neural networks, or ANNIs. A subset of A, termed A' contains those problems that are solvable. Set B consists of the problems defining similar black box behaviors in biological neural networks, or BNNIs, with a solvable subset termed B'. There exists a subset of problems in A' and B' that share the same solutions. Some black box behaviors in both ANNIs and BNNIs may be explained by the same generalized neural network structures, both mathematical and linguistic. Although most black box problems in either system may remain hypercomputational, solving a subset of black box problems in ANNIs could directly inform solutions in BNNIs. Given this conjecture, a set of experiments could be designed to explore the similarities between the emergent behaviors of ANNIs and human neural networks. The goal would be to understand how meaning is generated and interpreted both in artificial and biological systems through a cross-disciplinary approach combining neuroscience, psychology, and computational ANNI models. While ANNIs are simpler than BNNIs and more accessible for theoretical study, solving their solvable problems could offer insights into understanding emergent meaning creation in humans. These experiments would begin by examining how ANNIs generate high-level abstract thought, analyzing patterns in their language generation and thought formation processes. By comparing these mechanisms to emergent analogs in human brains, the experimental program could map shared principles between the two systems. For example, one could design neural networks that mimic human thought formation, starting from basic language patterns and scaling up to more complex semantic interpretations. Indeed, modern LLM neural networks mimic human thought formation almost perfectly at this point. Neural networks could be set to simulate BNNI behaviors in controlled scenarios, observing how emergent meaning arises and comparing these results to human psychological responses. This research would also have profound implications for understanding feedback loops between local and non-local consciousness in human minds. If BNNIs truly are hybrid systems, where the human mind is constantly interacting with both its local biological structures and non-local aspects of consciousness, then understanding this dynamic through ANNIs may not offer a complete picture of human consciousness. However, it could provide valuable insights into the nature of human thought, particularly when viewed through the lens of emergent phenomena and quantum processes. Presuming that non-local consciousness interacts with local consciousness in subtle ways, as some mindfulness and meditative practices suggest, these experiments may also shed light on the mechanisms by which the human mind accesses deeper levels of awareness. Exploring the emergent behavior in ANNIs could thus pave the way for breakthroughs in psychology, helping us better understand the bridge between the local biological mind and potential non-local collective aspects of consciousness. Thank you to our Giving Circle supporters for your continued generosity. Your support enables us to explore new scientific frontiers and drive our mission to uncover the fundamental nature of reality.